get over here now and pick up the old hag we kicked out of our house because we want nothing to do with her."
About a month after my father's funeral, I received an unexpected call from Jackson. He had kicked my mother out of the house and demanded that I take care of her from now on. I was taken aback, unable to comprehend the situation immediately. "You're joking, right? You didn't actually kick Mom out of the house."
"Come see for yourself. Oh, and I let her take Dad's memorial tablet."
"Why would you do something so cruel?"
"I have no use for Mom now that we can't get Dad's inheritance. She's just a poor burden, isn't she?"
I was shocked. Apparently, my late father had debts, and after paying them off, there was no inheritance left. This was news to me. Even worse, Jackson and his wife had been living in the family home all this time. It was outrageous.
"It's getting dark soon. If you don't come to pick her up, Mom will be sleeping on the streets."
"How could you be so cruel? I will never forgive you for this, Jackson."
"I don't need your forgiveness, ha ha ha."
"That's just too harsh." Jackson hung up without hearing me out, and subsequent calls went unanswered. When I managed to reach my mother, she confirmed that everything Jackson had said was true. Angry at Jackson and worried for my mother, I had no choice but to drive over to where she was. I am Lily, a 27-year-old woman in a hurry. 3 years ago, I married Mason, who is the same age as me, and we've been living together since. At the beginning of our marriage, we lived with my parents in the family home, but 2 years ago, Jackson and his wife abruptly moved in. They said our presence was making the place crowded and we were forced to leave. My older brother Jackson, 8 years my senior, has always been selfish, but his marriage seems to have enhanced that trait. Our family home, where I was born and raised, is a spacious mansion, inherited from my grandfather with extensive land. There should be no discomfort in living together. I was not satisfied with the situation and urged with Jackson, but my husband, who hates conflicts, urged us to leave. Around that time, my father was diagnosed with cirrhosis of the liver, which had already significantly worsened. I wanted to spend his last moments with him, but that didn't happen. The disease rapidly consumed my father, and he passed away a month ago. My heart ached knowing that my mother must be in much more pain than I was. To have my own brother treat us this way, amidst all the fresh sorrow, it was pitiful. What would happen next was truly a shock. An hour later, when we arrived at our family home, my mom was sitting desolate on a suitcase in the garden. The front door was locked. Jackson, she said, had taken her keys. Using my set of keys, I unlocked the door and walked in with my mom. Jackson and Olivia were sprawled on the sofa, nonchalantly watching TV. Is this some kind of joke?
"Huh? How did you get in?"
I used my key to open the front door. Isn't it obvious?
Ugh, slipped my mind. Leave your key, take the old lady, and go.
This isn't funny. How can you be watching TV after kicking your own mother out of the house? Besides, if the house remained, even after Dad's debts were paid off, Mom has a right to live here.
Huh? What are you talking about?
Infuriated by Jackson's dismissive attitude, I stood in front of the TV. Mom has a right to inherit this house. If you can't live with her, you should be the one to leave, Jackson.
Shut up. This house is mine. Dad gave it to me when he was alive. Don't act smart without knowing anything.
What? What do you mean? There's no way Dad gave this house to you, Jackson, before he died. Mom also looked puzzled, shaking her head. In the face of our confusion, Jackson smirked and got up from the sofa, bringing out an envelope from a room in the back.
Look at this.
What's this?
It's proof that I inherited this house.
The envelope contained documents proving the inheritance, prepared by a judicial scrivener, and his real estate ownership certificate. He said that the property had been transferred to his name a month before Dad passed away. Mom and I were shocked as we looked at the documents. Why would Dad do something like this? Asking a departed person doesn't yield an answer. I sighed, looking at his picture. Why would Dad hand over the house to Jackson without discussing it with Mom?
Because I'm his favorite, of course. I told him that Mom would take the house once he passed away, so he gave it to me while he was still alive.
That can't be. I can't believe it.
Open your eyes and face the reality.
No matter how many times we checked the documents, the property was in Jackson's name. All this just for a house? My mom muttered in disbelief. Is there no other inheritance? Nothing left for Mom?
Nothing. Be glad that the debts are cleared.
This can't be real.
You're not just worrying about Mom. You realize there's no inheritance for you either, right?
The bank card he handed over contained only a few dollars. I wasn't after Dad's inheritance, but it was a shock to learn that he had left me nothing. This is too cruel. And to add insult to injury, Olivia was laughing her heart out seeing our dejection.
Now get lost. You poor people have no business here.
Jackson and Olivia forcibly drove us out of the house. Ouch, that hurts. Mom had fallen and scraped her palm when they pushed us out. Blood was seeping from the wound. As I wrapped her hand in my handkerchief, tears of frustration welled up and fell. My mother, seeing me like this, gently wiped my tears, her eyes filled with sorrow as well. Mom, our place is small, but come stay with us. But I don't want to impose on Mason. I'll find somewhere else to stay, don't worry. I just can't leave you like this. I'm going to call Mason right now, just wait. Wiping my tears, I grabbed my cell phone and dialed my husband. From the other end of the line, I heard Mason's voice.
Hello?
Mason, I'm sorry for calling out of the blue. My mom has been kicked out of her house. As I explained the situation to my surprised husband, he hummed in understanding, though he seemed a bit hesitant. I held my breath waiting for Mason's response.
Our apartment is pretty cramped compared to Mom's house. It might not be the most comfortable.
Yeah, our place is tiny.
But I don't mind. Bring your mom over. We've had times where we were taken care of at home too. In times of trouble, we should help each other out.
Mason, thank you so much. My husband is a kind man with a big heart. He could never leave someone in need. Quickly, we took Mom to our apartment, and from that day on, we lived together. However, living with 3 people in our small apartment was certainly cramped. We don't have enough savings to buy a house yet, but should we move to a slightly larger place?
That might be good. I feel bad for your mom in this small space.
As my husband and I were searching for properties on the computer, my mom's cell phone rang. After a while, she hung up the phone and said something we never could have imagined. Why don't we live in my Highlands condominium?
Wait, what?
Highlands condominium? Yes. What do you mean? My mother began to explain, to our surprise. Apparently, my grandfather, who was a wealthy man, was quite a spendthrift and spent all the money he made in a day on that day. In order to deal with his constant borrowing, my grandmother had no choice but to sell off their farmland and make ends meet. According to my mom, my father was also a big spender. But we don't have any assets other than the house we lived in, so I was really worried about our future. That's why I invested in real estate with the money I earned when I was working before I got married. My husband and I were absolutely stunned. It turns out, in addition to the Highlands condominium, my mom was also managing an apartment building and had made a significant amount of money from her real estate investments. I can't even comprehend this. It's too amazing. I'm sorry I didn't tell you. Anyway, I just got a call from the management company that there's a vacancy in the Highlands condominium. We can move in next month. What do you think? There was no reason to refuse such a generous offer. Plus, it was a Highlands condominium with 3 bedrooms, a living room, a dining room, and a kitchen, located just a 5-minute walk from the station, which was much more comfortable than our current situation. Thank you, Mom, but we may only be able to pay as much rent as we are for the apartment. You don't need to worry about that. No way. We have to do this properly, even if we're family. Oh, I need to tell the landlord that we're moving out. Looking at my husband and I beaming with joy, my mother's face brightens too. Time flew by as we busied ourselves preparing to move in. Before we knew it, we had spent 2 months living in our new home, Highlands condominium. As I was about to head out for some shopping, I was taken aback when the Jackson couple suddenly appeared in front of the condominium entrance.
Why are you, a pauper, living in Highlands condominium? Did you hit the jackpot or something?
Of course not. Highlands condominium has always belonged to my mom. Jackson and Olivia were both taken aback.
What?
They exclaim in unison, looking at the towering condominium. I couldn't help but burst into laughter at their confused and goofy expressions. Jackson, his face flushing red, began to seethe with anger.
That wretched woman! I can't believe she was hiding this from us while pretending to be poor.
My mom never said she was poor. You just assumed it, Jackson. Plus, she inherited a large house. What's wrong with that?
That's not the point.
Don't yell here. It's disrespectful to the other residents. Besides, how did you know I was here? Jackson said that when he couldn't reach my mother, he tracked her down using her mobile phone's location. Why are you trying to contact Mom now after kicking her out? I bet it's something nasty again.
Regardless, if Mom is here, I want to see her. Let me in, now.
You must be joking. If you hurt Mom again, I couldn't bear it. If you have something to say, you can tell me. But they kept insisting on seeing my mother, without revealing why. The Jackson couple seemed rather flustered. Weren't you living comfortably in your huge family house, just the 2 of you?
It's none of your business.
Fine, if you don't want to tell me, that's okay. I have to go now. Bye. As I tried to walk past the Jackson couple, Jackson suddenly grabbed my arm tightly. Ouch, let me go.
Just call Mom.
Absolutely not. I'll call the police. But Jackson just scoffed at me, as if looking down on me.
There's no way the police would come for a simple family argument. Even if they did, there's no way you could sue me for just grabbing your arm.
I suppose you're right. It was true. Calling the police over something so minor might not only be futile, but also disruptive to others. I felt bad and ended up not saying anything. Fine, I'll tell my mom, but only if you tell me why you're here.
The utility bills for that house are ridiculous. Just for the AC, the electric bill is $500. This is no joke.
Their old, traditional-style house had more than 8 rooms, so it was no surprise that utility costs were high. But even so, a $500 electricity bill seemed a little steep. It was a particularly hot summer, so they probably overused the AC. I thought you would have known that from the start.
How would we have known? Mom used to pay the bills.
Jackson scratched his head frantically as Olivia fumed. There's no way we would have known. Do you know the property tax for that house is $5,000 a year?
What?
I can't believe you didn't know.
Why would an old house like that cost so much? How are we supposed to pay that?
Our house is old and has a large yard, so it's only natural that it would cost a lot to maintain. I also pointed out a reality to the Jacksons that they might not have realized. And you know, apparently it costs more in taxes to give away property while you're alive than after you pass away. This is going to be tough going forward.
Wait, is that true?
I see you didn't know. I told them this was all true, information I had heard from my mom, and the color drained from the Jacksons' faces. Seeing the stunned Jacksons, Olivia burst out in anger, saying, "It's your fault for not doing your homework. and they started fighting right in front of me.
After all the trouble we went through to get Dad to change the name on the house, this is too much.
That's what you get for doing something so underhanded.
But even Dad said clearly that it would be better to give it to me than to your mom.
I can't believe it. I was shocked and fell silent, realizing that my father had disregarded my mom and me. Then, seizing the moment, Jackson made an outrageous request.
You can have the house. Let's exchange it for this Highlands condominium.
What are you talking about? This isn't mine, it belongs to Mom.
Please, talk to Mom for me. I beg you.
I promise to pass on your message, nothing more.
What the hell is that supposed to mean?
Feeling ridiculous for even engaging with them, I gave up on shopping and started to head back into the Highlands condominium through the entrance, but the Jacksons tried to follow me in. Their audacity left me speechless. I'll sue you for trespassing.
You just told us that wouldn't be a legal issue.
It seems like they won't get the message until they suffer a real consequence. Exasperated, I called out to the management office next to the entrance. Excuse me, could you please call the security? Someone who's not a resident of the Highlands condominium is trying to force their way in.
What? Wait a minute.
The security guard, who was on standby 24/7 at the Highlands condominium, came running immediately. With the large security guard in front of them, the two of them were startled, and I warned them once again to avoid the same thing happening in the future. I didn't call the police just now because you only grabbed my arm, but if you try to use force or enter the Highlands condominium again, I will really call the police, okay?
We beg you, don't do that.
If I even catch a glimpse of you, I'll report it. So go back to your mansion that you got from Dad. Got it? Apparently scared of the police, the Jacksons hastily retreated. I went back to my apartment and told my mother about the exchange with the Jacksons. But why did Dad let Jackson inherit the house? As I was feeling downcast, my mom smiled. Dad must have known what he was doing when he let Jackson inherit. He didn't want to burden me or you, Lily. Even though Dad was indifferent about money, he cared for me a lot. Of course, he always said he loved you, Lily, so much. Really? I was overjoyed to hear that my father felt that way about me. When my mom heard about the inheritance from Jackson, she muttered, "Are you going this far?" Because she realized that he had given a severe punishment to Jackson, who was always self-centered. You knew how Dad felt, Mom. Of course, dear. We've been together for 38 years. I know what he's thinking without him saying a word. Besides, Jackson never took care of Dad when he was sick. I was under the impression that the Jacksons were looking after my father. However, it turns out they hardly ever visited him, not at home and barely in the hospital. When I visited my dad, he would often tell me,
Jackson comes to see me, and you have your job to attend to, Lily. There's no need for you to go out of your way.
I took his words to heart, not realizing that it was a gentle lie meant to ease my worries. I had it all wrong about Dad. I feel awful. I want to apologize. Don't fret, Lily. Your feelings are reaching Dad in heaven. The ones who should worry are the Jacksons. Who these days would buy a big, high-maintenance house like that? I bet they'll struggle to find a buyer. Ha ha. The truth in my mom's mischievously gleeful words became evident after a while. The Jacksons, unable to maintain the house on their own, had put it up for sale but couldn't find a buyer. They continued to live in it even a year later. In the midst of all this, Olivia accidentally started a grease fire while cooking chicken, and the house quickly burned down. And since they didn't have money for fire insurance, their life is going to get even tougher. While I understand their predicament, it doesn't concern me. Apparently, the Jacksons are now camping out in the burned-down remains of their house. Living in the Highlands condominium is absolutely fantastic, and I can only feel gratitude toward my mother. I've been paying my mom rent every month, but it seems she's been saving it all to ensure we won't face hardship in the future. Every day is filled with peace and happiness as I live with my incredible mother and kind husband. As I visited my father's grave, I vowed to him that I would continue to repay my mother's kindness.